Okay. All right. So, Blended Family Playbook. Family, it has been an amazing Sunday, a great weekend for me. I just got back from Miami. Me and the missus had a chance to spend Saturday and Sunday in Miami and had a good time without the kids. Got some sun, got some beach time, had just a really great time meeting some new friends and family. So I'm going to tell you, it's been awesome. But the reason why I had to make sure that I got back today was so I could interview Jamie. Jamie, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name. So give that last name to me again.
It's Scrimgeour, Jamie Scrimgeour.
Jamie Scrimgeour. So I'm very sensitive about that because my first name gets misspelled and mispronounced all the time. So I'm very sensitive about asking things like that. Guys, I had to be back so we could interview Jamie because I've been waiting a while to interview this amazing blended family stepmom, lifestyle blogger, life coach. Her transparency is real. If you are not following her on Instagram or Facebook or her website, we're going to give you that information so you can. But one thing that she delivers is the goods, the realness, the transparency. That's why I gravitated towards wanting to interview her because she's one of the very few that you can tell is actually living what she's talking about. It's not fake. You can tell she talks about the mess up. She talks about how sometimes, you know what, she doesn't feel like doing it. She doesn't feel like doing this or that. And I love it. So Jamie, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Can you give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. You know what? I was just at a conference the other day and we were talking about how to introduce yourself. And it's something that we're all kind of working on, right? In this space, because we do kind of so many different things. But just to kind of give you a background. So I am a stepmom of 3, a mom of 1. My husband and I just had our 5th wedding anniversary last weekend. So before I became a stepmom, I was a child protection worker for Children's Aid. So for those of you who are in the States, that's CPS, I think, for you guys. Okay. Protective Services. So here in Canada, or I think it's maybe just Ontario, we call it CAS. So I worked with a lot of families in crisis, also as a child of divorce. So I kind of felt like in terms of like blended families and custody and access cases, I was dealing with all that high conflict stuff in my work. So when I got together with my husband, who, had an ex-wife and 3 kids and all of that, part of me as a child of divorce, and I always say I used to get rid of my dad's girlfriends for sport. I was kind of like, kind of like the worst nightmare for anyone who dated my dad. So it was funny. My family was like, oh goodness, like this is karma for you, Jamie. But I thought, you know what, I kind of had it in the bag with my personal and professional experience, all of that. So yeah, but it turned out that being an expert on the outside and living it in real life are just 2 very different things, right? So basically, long story short, couple months into being a stepmom, I was just telling you this before, I found myself, even though I, love my stepkids are amazing, my husband's great, but it's a lot, guys. Like, it's complicated, even when it's good. Like, it's like Stepmom magazine always says, even when it's good, it's complicated.
Absolutely.
So, honestly, straight up there, I was like sitting on my bathroom floor with my wine. If you follow me, I love my wine. Bawling my eyes out, being like, I should just get in the car and go because this is a lot, right? But I didn't, obviously. But when I went to the internet for support, because I knew I needed to do something, and I couldn't find any support for stepmoms. It was all a lot of, can we swear? I was about to say bitching. I'm like, oh shoot, can I swear? But it was a lot of negativity.
Be yourself, Jamie, be yourself.
And complaining. And there was really no one telling me how to be a stepmom, like how to do a good job and find your way in this like co-parenting situation. And that's what I needed. I thought it was kind of crappy amongst all of the resources for moms, like all the moms who are watching this, scroll through your news feed right now. And it's all the articles for moms, right? So much support, but then there was really nothing for stepmoms. Anyway, I just did a lot of work on my family and myself on, really dug my head deep into a lot of step family resources, weeded through the good, kind of yeah, just did a lot of work. And then ultimately, I ended up starting to create the type of support that I was looking for. I became a stepmom. So after I kind of navigated through that and I started my blog, I didn't think anyone was going to read it. I was just blogging. I used to blog when I was just out of university, and I just was kind of a hobby. And then all of a sudden, apparently there were people who were agreeing with what I had to say. So that's the story of my blog. I'm a life coach, specialization in step family dynamics now, do one-on-one coaching with stepmoms. I have an online program called the Kick-Ass Stepmom Project for stepmoms who are basically just looking to thrive amongst, the extra stressors that come with blended family life. And that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
I love it. No, Jamie, I think it sounds like everything that had happened in your life led up to this momentum shift in terms of just your platform, right? I mean, so CPS, but in terms of Canada, right? Because you live in Canada, correct?
Yes.
For my audience, you coming from a blended family, and then you're married into a blended family. So I think your passion, it's evident when you read your social media, but you know what I got to do? I wouldn't be doing you any justice if I didn't let the people know, where can they find this blog that you're talking about? What's the address?
You know what? I just, everything is under Jamie Scrimgeour. So it's www.jamiescrimgeour.com. And my Instagram handle is Jamie Scrimgeour. You can find me on Facebook under Scrimgeour Jamie. Couldn't secure that handle. I tried to talk to the guy in the UK who had it, and he was not keen with switching his thing over. So it's Scrimgeour Jamie on that one. But yeah, it's just all under my name.
You got it. I'm posting it right now for our team. Awesome. And I think I got it. Jamie's blog, it's right there.
Oh,
all right. Did I do right?
R-I-M, it's G-E-O-U-R. Scrimgeour.
Oh, I added a H. Oops, let me take that down. All right. See, I almost had it.
You know what the kicker is here? My last name before I was married was Darling, Jamie Darling. And I changed it to Scrimgeour. Who knew I was going to brand myself and have a website and all that? So I've been basically spelling my last name since the day I got married. So I told my husband, I'm like, that name switch, that's love. Like,
that's love.
Yeah.
That's love. Oh, guys, I'm just telling you, I mean, and we have quite a few people responding and listening. I'm just telling you, Jamie, your project, your coaching platform, we want to dive right in because I shared with my community the video that you did. I believe it was released last week on our Stepmoms, Real Moms. We got to go into this because I had a whole lot of feedback. I had friends saying, Marcus, wait a minute. My stepkids call me mom. How dare? I don't understand. And I said, well, guys, you got to tune in. Hear Jamie's logic and rationalization. And I'm telling you, you cannot but say, okay, I see the point. I get it. So let's dive into that.
Yeah. When I saw you share that video, I was just saying, I was like, oh gosh. Okay. So here's the deal with that video. So the question that I received from one of my followers was, when is it okay for your stepchild to call you mom? Right. And so that basically was the original purpose of that video. And I was, all I said is that I personally, as a mom myself, and as a mom myself, and I think when I became a mom, we had our ours baby. It's one of those titles I don't even love that term either, but how do you even explain it? But when we had our daughter, what I thought I knew about step parent, it just really changed the way I looked at step parenting. Just because I was her mom, and it was just this different bond that I didn't even really know I would ever be able to experience. And I love my stepchildren all like they're my own, and I treat them like they're my own. But there is a little bit of a different something, and I haven't quite come up with the right word to describe it, that between a mother and a child. And that's like, cue the hate mail right there, because that's when people say, no, you don't know what I experienced, and that's fine. And that's true. And before I kind of get into my rationale on this, I want to be very clear that what works for my family and what my opinion is, it doesn't mean that that's what's right for your family, right? I think that we really need to recognize that when it comes to blended families and step families, there are so many contributing factors that play into what's the right thing for you and your family dynamic. So there's really no one size fits all approach, right? So this is from my perspective, and from most of the people that I work with, this is what works for us. But that doesn't mean there aren't so many situations, and some of them are my friends. I know many situations where the step parent is called mom or dad, and that's amazing if that's what works for you. However, here's what I think. I think before that happens, you need to consider 3 things. You need to consider their mom's, perspective on this, right? Like, how is the mom, going to receive this? And I think I always say you need to respect the role that the mom has in their child's life. And just because you are with them half the time or whatever your co-parenting schedule is, that does not mean that she's any less their mom, right? She's still their mom. And, I'm actually forgetting my 3 tips, so I'm going to tell you the 2. So the things I think you need to consider is, like, do the kids want to be called that, right? Like, do they want to call you mom? It has to be their idea. I hear all the time, okay, well, we're married now. Like, what are you going to call me? Call you by the name. Like, it doesn't define your relationship with your stepchildren. My stepchildren call me Jamie. And that doesn't define our relationship or the level of, like, love and commitment that we have in our home. That's just what they call it. And I think that that's okay. The other piece is that you really need to, if it's causing conflict, don't, like, there's so many times, like, just, like, don't sweat it, right? If it's causing conflict, it's not worth the battle. If it's causing your stepchild trouble at home because their mom's not receiving it well, then is it really worth it, right? You don't want them to have that turmoil in their home. So I think that there's a lot of things that need to be considered before that's the right move for your family. But that being said, it is definitely the right move for some families. But I would say in most of your typical co-parenting situations, it's not.
You're spot on. And we have quite a few comments already. But I want to hone in on this. Your title does not define your relationship. Jamie, I think that's huge. When you start looking at, is it more selfishness as to why you want to be called mom? If you're a stepmom, and you're right, if it's causing this child to be put in the middle of when they're at the biological's house and it's this tension, then you should never, if it's about the child, right, and it's their idea, and it should never be an issue. And I just really like what you just said. Your title should not define your relationship in that role. And if it works out, great. My daughter, she called me dad, but I asked her, I said, Camille, what would you like to call me when we first got married? And we walked through that. And I said, Camille, I'll be comfortable with whatever, because I said, I'm going to love you just the same. Mm-hmm. She calls dad. She still calls me dad. And I'm good with that. But I know for a fact, what if her biological father, who I honor and respect, was in the picture on a much greater level, and he didn't like it? I would have said, Camille, you know what? Just call me Marcus, or call me, Big Dad or Big G, because it's not about me, right? So go ahead.
Yeah, no, totally. And, I always say you need to respect your stepchild's mom. Even if you don't respect her, even if the way she parents the kids, is just so against everything that you stand for, you really need to just respect that role that she has, right? So I always say, like, treat them with respect, or respect them even if you don't. No, that doesn't mean you need to be friends and you need to be, super, nice and friendly and all of that. Like, treating them with respect can look so many different things. Oh, man. But it's just an element of respect and respecting that role, because at the end of the day, she is their mom, and she's their mom. Exactly.
We got some good comments. So you got Megan saying that her stepson has called her mom a couple of times and asked, but I love Megan's response. I'm good with whatever you want to call me, son, or, to her stepson. That's, I think, so responsible. And that's why I really liked your video. Bonnie Coon says, my stepkids call me by my first name. They often refer to me as their second mom when speaking, but never mom. That's okay. You know why? As long as it works out for them, that's good. I just like the fact that you're bringing up the conversation, Jamie.
Yeah. And, I always say someone had to, right? No one was really talking about it. And, we were talking before we went live and, what's the deal with the stepmoms, like trying to be the mom and trying to prove their motherness, if that's even a word. I think that we all as stepmoms, we are it's a form of motherhood. We are, it's in the umbrella of motherhood. Stepmothers is definitely in there, but it is different than being someone's mom. And why are we so, stressed out about trying to prove that we're like a mom when why don't we just be like proud that we're a stepmom? Like, why don't we just own that? Because that's where the stigma and the stereotypes and all of that comes from, right? There's a stereotype in society. And many times it's, snowballed when stepmoms are really trying to prove their motherness and prove that they are a mom when let's just own we're stepmoms and that's a good thing. Like, let's make being a stepmom a good thing. Let's change the conversation.
Love it. And like you said, it's eliminating the stigma that comes along that I think a lot of us as step parents can put on ourselves. It's not the kids just want to be cared for, no matter what the age, right? No matter how the relationship is, kids just want to be cared for. So we're getting a whole lot of commentary that people are like, the respecting is spot on. But let's move on to something that I think a lot of stepmoms, step parents go through, and that is the turf wars. How did you manage that? Did you have to manage that? What would be your coaching for that?
I think we all naturally have this competition, right? And I'm making up words throughout this whole life, but you want to be liked, you want to be, you want them to enjoy being with you and you want to kind of prove yourself, right? And I think that a lot of times moms and stepmoms get into this almost competition about who's the best and who's doing the best for the kids. And I don't know if I necessarily ever felt a turf war between them. Because their mom is their mom, right? And she's always going to be their mom. And I've always just kind of owned my role as a stepmom. But that being said, there was definitely times where I was insecure about being the second wife, right? And, figuring out my place in this family and trying to figure out where I fit in. And I often say, as a stepmom, you're good enough until you're not, right? Like, you're good enough for the pickups and the drop-offs and the appointments and to make the dinner and to make the lunches. And hey, it's homework time. But if you disagree on the rules and structure in the house, we better back off. You better know your place, right? So it's like, I think that's the stuff that really irks stepmoms, right? Is figuring out your place in your family. And that takes time. And, I think also when it comes to the turf war, a lot of stepmoms, you feel new. Like, you feel like there's this family with these traditions and these, all of these memories, and you're not part of them. And that's where we kind of get that insecurity. But I always say, like, guys, you just got to let time do its thing there, right? Because, I don't now, 5 years in, I don't, other than I kind of use it in my branding, the second wife, but I don't really consider myself my husband's second wife. I'm his wife, right? We have awesome memories that we've made over the last 5 years with the kids. Like to me, the fact that I'm his second wife is non-existent. So when it comes to the turf war, I think, you just have to let time do its thing. And, remember, it's not a bad thing for kids to have two really kick-ass motherly figures in their life. Actually, that's amazing. If you guys can do it right, then the kids are lucky. But if you're worried about who's the best and who's doing this and who's doing that, then those poor kids, because they pick up on that, and it causes them a lot of extra stress and turmoil that they didn't sign up for any of this stuff, right? So I think it's our job as parents to try to make this as seamless for them as possible.
Wow. So this is what, this is my Aunt Cookie out of, her name is LaJaris Bell. She's out of North Carolina. She said something that I thought was worth mentioning and wanted to get your insight on. She said, we still get stigmatized as wicked stepmoms sometimes, and that's hard to fight, especially, and then feel insecure about yourself. So how do you coach your stepmoms, Jamie, when they're wanting to do the right thing and be totally unselfish, and they're still getting kicked down? They're still getting, the looks, the turf wars, and they're not trying to make it a turf war, but it's being made one. How do you handle that?
I think you just keep doing you, right? And I always say kids are going to grow up and they're going to look back on their childhood as adults, right? With an adult perspective. Like as an adult, do you ever look back on your childhood and things that happened and you're like, oh, well, like I now see that in a very different way, right? They're going to reflect back and say, oh, you know what? My stepmom did A, B, C, or this is what she went through. And they're just going to look at it with a different perspective. So I always try to encourage, people to remember that. And just do you, right? Who gives a shit what other people think, right? Like you be the expert on your own family. If you continue to allow that stigma to impact how you act and react in your own house, you're allowing other people's opinion to play, way too much of a role in your life. And I do recognize that saying that it's easier said than done, right? Like I do really think, just don't let other people's opinion bother you. And everyone's like, okay, Jamie, thanks. How? But it's a really kind of like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like keep doing it and keep, trying to be strong and, giving yourself pep talks. Like when things would happen. So there was a period of time in our step family life when things would happen. And I was so consumed by it and my hands would shake and I was like so, consumed all day long and I wasn't getting anything else done. So then I literally would be like talking myself through it. Like when I made this program, like I always say, like I made this program for me and then it worked so well for me and our family. I've shared it for everyone else. But you pep talk yourself in and say, this is actually none of your business. Like it doesn't matter what other people think of you. You are the expert on your own family. And I'll be like walking up my stairs and I'll be, trying to talk myself out of it because you're the only person who can do that because your husband doesn't really get it, right? He just doesn't get it, and you just have to be strong.
So this brings up a great question, Jamie. Oh, you led me right into my next question. And that is, well, first, I love the, and it's Shalise. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right. Shalise's story said, be the expert on your own family. Yes, she loved it. I love that point. That's another golden nugget. Be the expert on your own family before you start trying to manage somebody else's. And as a matter of fact, if you work on that, you should never have time to worry about somebody else's family. But that being said, how did you deal with your husband not understanding the plight of the stepmom? Because I dealt with that with my wife. And I finally had to realize that's not something she'll ever understand. That's like me trying to say, I'll try to understand what it means to be a mother. How did you manage that? What do you coach? How do you coach to that?
Well, I always coach. So when you're upset or you're emotional or you're, in a place where he doesn't understand and you feel like he needs to understand right then and there, he does not need to understand right then and there. If you are trying to get him to understand in that moment when you're all emotional, it's not going to work and you're going to look crazy, right? So you need to, I always say, well, these are the things I talk about. So the 5-5-5 rule. So before you react, and I'm not, guys, I just want to be clear. Sometimes I don't do the 5-5-5 rule. Sometimes I'm like, I maybe should have read my own stuff before I dealt with that, right? Like no one has it all together all the time. But I use these, tools more and more, and it's made a huge, huge difference in our family. So the 5-5-5 rule, someone who took my first program, and she told me about it. Her name's Jillian, and she literally shared the 5-5-5 rule with us. Ask yourself before you get your panties in a bunch of something, will this matter in 5 minutes? Will this matter in 5 days? Will this matter in 5 years? Like in 5 years, when you feel like your husband isn't respecting you about bedtime, is that bedtime going to matter in 5 years from now? You know what I mean? Just relax and kind of dial it back and decide, your reaction accordingly. And the 24-hour rule. My husband tried to do, because you may get this from me, I'm a bit of a spitfire. So like when I'm upset about something, my husband says he knows in about 4 seconds, right? Like we just are very upfront with each other. But what we try to do is he wanted us to all just recap on Sunday about how the week went. And I was like, I can wait till Sunday. 24 hours though, just like chill out and calm down and then decide whether or not it's a big deal. But in terms of getting him to understand, which he doesn't understand, he can never, ever really understand what it's like. You're not going to understand what it's like to be a stepmom unless you're a stepmom. Just like I don't understand what it's like for him to manage child support payments and, 50-50 custody and not being with his kids all the time and he has to appease an ex-wife and a new wife. Like, as much as his loyalty is to me, try to keep this whole thing working, right? And that's a lot of pressure. And I think as stepmoms, we forget about that. So what?
That is so good. Oh, Jamie, so we're talking about maturity here, right? We're talking about selflessness.
Sometimes.
Of us wanting to have that person understand us. And you're so spot on, because I was at the point of wanting to divorce my wife at one point because she was not understanding my plight. Yeah. And after I realized how selfish I was being, I started realizing, you know what? Look at her. She's trying to manage this 24-year-old boy, putting her in very tough positions with this daughter who's amazing and, the biological father. And when I finally grew up in that respect, it totally changed my view. So I love what you're saying. You have to look at it from somebody else's shoes.
Yeah. And do you know what you say to your husband when he's not going to get what you're going to say? Because, and this is not even step families, this is just in all situations. You say, you don't need to understand or agree with why I'm feeling this way. I just need you to respect that this is how I'm experiencing things right now. And you know what? Like, even if he is still kind of mad about what you're saying, when you preface with that, he really can't be, right? Like, you come in with that and say, look, like, we're going to have difference of opinions, but I need you to respect that this is my experience and you got to be my rock here, right? Like, we got to be on the same team and work through things together instead of, having battles in our house and then having to deal with all of the other battles. Like, that's why the divorce rate for blended families is as high as it is.
You got it. You hit it. Tell us about this program. What is it like? Take people who don't know about it on a journey of what happens during the program.
Cool. So we just actually wrapped up a round of the programs where you get access to the program, which the program has. I think it's like a 75-page ebook. There are 14 plus videos just going through the different modules in the ebook. There's an exclusive Facebook group that's pretty tight, knit and supportive. So it's for stepmoms who are looking for positive solution-focused support. I don't know, I'm sure stepmoms who are watching this right now, you've all been in the Facebook groups where it's catty and it's negative and it's a lot of bitching and complaining. That's just not ever going to be happening on my platforms. So we're very positive and solution focused. But basically, the program, it's all about, setting the foundation for step family success, setting the foundation with yourself and, getting on the same page with your husband about how you're going to run your families, setting boundaries. People always say, the experts say, well, make sure you're clear on your boundaries. And then they leave it at that. Well, how do you set your boundaries? What does that look like? What does the process look like, right? Talking about, basically I could go on and on, but basically it's your life, all of this extra stressors that come with being a stepmom, you cannot control how your husband's ex-wife acts. You can't control your stepkids and how they perceive you and, messaging that comes to them or just any of the issues that, happen with, you can't control how someone else acts. What you can control is your own reaction. So I basically teach people to live a kick-ass life amongst all those extra stressors, and it happens with them. And I know that sounds like a big ball of cheese, but it's really true. You are the only person in your life who can change the outcome of your life. You can sit around and you can blame everyone else and all of the circumstances all you want, but doing so is not going to move the needle. It's not going to move you forward.
That's good.
So that's basically how the program works.
That's good. And you said it's once or twice, maybe 3 times a year that you have intake?
Well, so I do I'm going to start doing webinars once a year. So we just wrapped up the first round of webinars. So that's all done. And so then the cart reopens and then I'll run those webinars again once a year. So anyone who signs up throughout the year has access to those webinars. But the webinars are just kind of like a cherry on top. most people typically do the program on their own, and it's self-paced. So like if you are having a really crappy day, you can plow through that in a weekend. Or some stepmoms go through it, over the course of 6 or 7 months. But the best part of the program is that your step family stressors evolve. So, once you've kind of, passed through a certain stage of life, you feel like everything's good. I think we can all say that in a blended family. Like, we're like, oh, things are really good right now. Everything's great. Then wham, something happens and you're like, shit, are we really back here right now? And you have new step family stressors, right? You have So the program, you can go back and you can go through some of the worksheets and some of the lists I have you write, and just some of the activities, the videos, and address your new step family stressors. So you can come back to it time and time again. And I say that because I have done my own program several times. Even a couple weeks ago, my husband says, he's like, you think you maybe need to review your program? And he's kind of I'm like, yeah.
I like your husband. Okay.
Yeah, so I just kind of, it's like a refresher. It's like your personal development for stepmoms.
This is good. So, guys, I want you to know, go to the website, jamiescrimgeour.com, and we'll post that again. Yeah. If you are having trouble as a stepmother, you need to be a part of this program. We're going to touch on the last point. And then I know it's family time. It's Sunday family time for the Scrimgeour family. I want to know this. How do you deal with high conflict blended families where, it's just high conflict? How do you handle that? And maybe without, of course, revealing names, what's the toughest one you've had to coach through in terms of high conflict? And I know I'm asking you to pull something right off the top of your brain, but if you can help that, it might help somebody else. If you can bring that out, it might help.
I think, the toughest situations really are, moms who are not embracing the role of the stepmom, and they're shutting the stepmom out, or they're putting the stepmom down to the stepchild. And so then, when, a stepmom is around their stepchild in public, they're ignored and they don't feel like they can talk to them, right? So that happens a lot. And I think that's one of the most high conflict situations. How do you deal with that? I think that sucks. I think that sucks so bad for the kid that their mom is not allowing them to embrace this person who is plays a role in their life. And that, I always say, that speaks way more about them and where they're at in this journey of acceptance, or, just moving forward with their life. Like that type of negativity, they're not putting their child's best interest first, right? Sure. But you can't do anything about that. So, I had stepmoms who there's actually been 3 or 4 different situations that are similar to this. So, when they're in public, they would be like, no, you can come here. It's okay. No, you know what? That just put that stepchild in a very awkward situation where they have loyalty binds and they don't know who to go to. And it's going to cause them a whole lot of trouble at home. So what you really need to do is just accept it. And, I had a stepmom say to me, she's like, I've forgiven my husband's ex-wife for all that she does. And oh man, that's a whole other this situation. I said, you've forgiven her? How have you forgiven her? Like, to me, I think forgiving is an act that you do after an action. But when someone continues to do something over and over and over again, you have to take that time and energy into forgiving them over and over and over again. And that's emotionally exhausting.
Yes.
So I like to switch out the word forgiveness for acceptance. So you accept that this is where she is at in her life and this is what she's doing. You don't respect it, but you're just going to, you can't change that. And so what I do for those situations is I always say to the stepmom, don't put your stepchild in a situation where she feels awkward. So just let it be and just let her know that that's okay, right? So that they're not feeling that turmoil. They have enough stuff to deal with 2 homes and 2 sets of belongings and access schedules and all of that. They don't need to worry. You don't want them to look back on like a baseball game and think, oh my gosh, that was so awkward with my mom and stepmom there. Like that was probably the worst thing of my childhood. Like it made me feel sick to my stomach. You want them to look back and be like, you know what? It was pretty cool that both my parents could be there to support me.
That's right.
What do you want your kid, your stepkid or your child to remember about their childhood? And I always try to come back to that, especially when, things are stressful or, we're in the teenager years and it's just like teenage teenagers are just tough in general, right? So then you throw in a step parenting dynamic. You're trying to navigate your way through, figuring out your role. I always look back and say, what do I want my 2 teenage stepchildren to remember about me when they look back?
This is good, Jamie. High conflict is one thing. What is your suggestion to, because one thing we know is the rate of divorce for blended families is even higher, right? That second divorce rate, it's even higher. What do you tell those stepmoms out there who are just hanging on by a thread? How do they help their husband? Because I look at it, guys, we're not as apt, and that's why I'm here. Blended family guy, I'm here to be the voice for the stepdad, right? From that male perspective, because there's even less stepdad help. But guys aren't as quick to join a Facebook Live and start, hey man, we're a little more prideful, a little more private. Yeah. What would be your coaching for that stepmom, helping her husband balance both? Because you're right. And I love that you were, I think, transparent enough to say, wow, I need it, and mature enough to say, man, I need to look at it through my husband's eyes, child support to, a wife and, his former wife, the biological mom. How do you manage that? What would be your coaching to them to help your husband?
I just think you need to put yourself in your husband's shoes. Like for a while when things were kind of hairy here for a bit, my husband would come home and I would call him on his way home. It's like, this is what's going on and you need to have a conversation and you need to deal with this. Can you imagine coming home from work and having that when you walk in the door? Wow. Right? And I know that so many stepmoms are doing that because I did it, right? You want them to deal with the stuff with the kids, or you're telling them what's going on, or this happens with the ex-wife. And so can you imagine walking in the door? Like, this is your safe place and your safe haven, and you have to deal with all that bullshit like the second you walk in the door. So I think that it's super important to put yourself in their shoes. And really, like, if you are in a situation where you are ready to walk, you need to disengage from all step parenting stuff and really just be a support for your husband, right? And really foster your relationship. I always, if you're not on the same page with your husband about how to run your house and how to do all of how you're going to run your family, that's like a recipe for disaster. But also it's a situation where I always recommend, just take a step back and let him take the lead. Because if he is not, if you guys aren't on the same page, just let him do the parenting and you focus on your relationship for a bit. Get strong, make that be the foundation, and then move into the parenting. Like, you need to have that solid foundation to be a successful blended family. And you may be 5 years in and be like, holy shit, where'd that foundation go that we had? And you need to take a step back, disengage, reevaluate, get back on the same page, and, foster that relationship, and then jump back in, right? Like, your relationship with your husband is your number one priority, because if the two of you aren't on the same page, you're not going to be able to handle this extra stressors. You absolutely are not.
Jamie, you're hitting on all cylinders. Complete agreement with you. You touched on what I really I coach on is the family priority system. One, like you said, your husband is first. And I even take it back to, I think you touched on it, I'll probably say it differently. It's manage what you can control the outcome of. If you're not in a position where you can help impact and influence and love on those kids the way that you'd like, then manage what you can, which is how you treat your husband. And even kids, absent of being able to do all you want. And I love what you're saying, because it's about maturity. So I think we as step parents, we have to grow up. And I always say this, being a step parent isn't for punks. It isn't for weaklings. This thing is real. It's hard.
No. And, I have two things I want to say. There's one thing I forgot to say about the high conflict thing that I think is super important. But Millennial Stepmom, she's on Instagram. She reached out and asked me, what do I think is one of the most positive things about being a stepmom? Like, what is the best part about being a stepmom? And I think she thought I was going to say something like about, it's amazing to watch kids grow and all of that stuff, which is all great and it's amazing, right? But it wasn't that. This is character building shit. If really do the work and really focus on your family and focus on overcoming the stressors that come your way and really kind of being the bigger person in this, it's just going to overflow into so many other areas of your life, right? I write blog posts and I have moms and grandmas and people who don't have kids who read them and they say, your lessons resonate with me, because the lessons you learn in step parenting, they're not just, stuck on step parenting. It's life. This is life, right? And this is just, I always say everyone has their crap and this is ours. And it's character building stuff here. The one thing though I want to come back, you were asking about the high conflict. How do you deal with high conflict? This is what I want to remind people. You know when things are going to go bad. When there's going to be an issue. Step family life and the problems that come about, it's pretty cyclical. You can predict when it's happening. And I think, no offense, but I think women are more in tune to that than men. I think we kind of can pick up on that stuff. And my husband would say, how did you know that was going to happen? I said, because I'm a woman. I know. I can see the signs. So what I say to stepmoms is, be very clear on your boundaries. Exactly what is going to happen before it happens. So sit down and literally write out what your stressors are, write out where things happen. Think back. How did I react last time? Maybe that wasn't so great. It didn't help. And then decide how you're going to react and be proactive, right? So be proactive with your reactions. So when it happens, you don't feel like you're punched in the stomach or you're feeling overwhelmed or you have that, shaky hand thing. You're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. And you've planned your reaction ahead of time. So you feel more in control, but you got to be consistent with that. So it's if you can't be consistent with your boundaries, then you don't have any.
Wow. Boundaries, maturity, controlling what you can control, and having the audacity to give up control when it's necessary, I think are what the resonating messages of what I've seen through this talk. Jamie, it's 6:42. You have a beautiful daughter, your husband that you have to get to. Guys, what I want you to do is make sure you share this, but also start following Jamie if you're not already. If you've been hiding under a rock or you just have not known about Jamie, you've got to start following her on Instagram, her blog, and she writes some pretty spicy posts. Her videos, they're going to cause you to really think and attack your thinking to see if it's the right, if you're thinking the right way. So
the 24-hour rule before you respond to my videos sometimes.
Oh, I love it. 24 hours, guys, before you that last one. Yeah, the one before last. Yeah, you needed to wait 24 hours. But Jamie, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this has been. We got to have you on again.
Oh, no, I love it. It's awesome.
Maybe, and I got 2 minutes. Let me ask you this: anywhere you're going to be, are you speaking? I know you're at a lot of conventions and you're doing a lot of talking. And what's going on in the life of Jamie?
You know what? Basically, right now, I just was at. This is probably not even the answer that you're going to want, but I was just at a conference last week, and someone said, "Slow your yes. You need to slow your yes." So for the summer, I am slowing my yes. I'm, writing my blog posts. I'll be hanging out over Instagram and on Instagram stories. But I'm just, the kids are getting older. And I've just realized that just how quickly it goes. And so I'm really focusing on family this summer and hanging out there. But I am thinking of doing a meetup perhaps in the fall. So if I am, I will definitely send you that information. But yeah, we can hang out on social media, which is the best part, right? Because everyone can just stay in their pajamas.
That's it. Jamie, this has been great. Thank you so much. It has been an awesome experience. I got to let you go, not because the audience wants that to happen, but family comes first, and you have some boundaries, right? So, guys, share this. I believe this is going to help people when they hear it. You never know. This might save a marriage, a blended family that's on the point of throwing in the towel. Share this, share it often. Thank you so much, Jamie. And we're going to do this again here in the future, all right?
Sure.
All right, Facebook family, we'll see you. Have a great Sunday night and an even better Monday. Y'all talk to y'all later. See you next week. We got another great program being scheduled for you. Oh, and I got one more. All right. So Sierra, I am a stepfather. And you can go through any of those posts, but yes, I'm a stepfather, proud of it. Me and my daughter have an amazing relationship, and Sierra, you can make it happen. Man, we still got, so Shalise, thank you. Great job, guys. Thank you for doing this. Shalise, make sure you better be following Jamie. I hope you're following me too. We love you guys. Jamie, I'm letting you go now. I'm ending the broadcast, people, okay? Talk to y'all later. See you next week. Have a good one.
So much.
Bye-bye.